Cosmic breathing. The first exercise in this advanced technique is the cosmic breath. It is a more universal condition than the conscious breathing. It is a cooperation in breath with the Christ. It comes from the heart and goes straight into the heart of the cosmic Christ. It is the union between our heart and His, and the uniting power is that of breath. See the heart of the cosmic Christ as a wheel moving in a tremendous sparking rhythm. See a tiny wheel in your own heart lighting up in response to it. The sparking is a continuous process, a mechanism as it were. It is flashing out into the world, and every single heart can respond to it. His heart is beyond description. It is a ruby radiance, and in it there is this brilliant and perpetual sparking on the rhythm of a heartbeat. See your own heart as a brilliant ruby light. Then on an in-breath, breathe down from your heart to the heart of the figure of light at your feet. Then, on an out-breath, breathe out from your heart diagonally up to his. There is a definite uniting of substance when we breathe in harmony with his heart. We learn to unite ourselves with him for the purpose of serving others. The law of energy is transmitted from the body of the cosmic Christ, and our bodies are designed to receive this perfect energy. If the heart is in alignment, the brain will follow. When you have visualized his heart as the great ruby radiance, commit the people you want to help into your heart and breathe them into his heart on an in-breath and out-breath as given above. Remember, it is breath only that goes between his heart and yours, and is the true act of committal. All responsibility leaves our minds, and the heart of the Christ transmits through our bodies, fulfilling the needs of the persons committed by us to him. This exercise is the method by which we become the law. The technique has been separated into two steps, what is called the old and what is known as the new. For you who are just going to start on the second stage, I think it will help if we get an understanding of ourselves in relationship to the method. It was very thrilling when I knew that healing was one of the functions that the Christ would be able to manifest through those individuals who were willing to give themselves to him. What does he need of us? We are so concerned with what we need that I do not think we have considered him enough. If we follow in his footsteps, it is because we think he needs us to arrive at the end of the path. But why do we consider he wants us to walk that path at all? Is it to give him something in another sphere, or is it for quite a different reason? Is it rather that he has an instant need of us here and now for something we have never considered ourselves capable of fulfilling? Has he really a need that we and the world should know it was not an individual experience he went through, but a universal one? Until his experience is universal, it will be thought individual. And so we come down to the difference between the personal and the universal. And the new technique is the beginning of our capacity to function on a universal wavelength. The old technique is for the preparation of the channel, which is an individual condition. The light brings into manifestation all the hidden and secret conditions of our heart and mind, and we do not like the look of it. It is contrary to our conception of what the light ought to do. Because we do the technique, we think we should be privileged people. But we have to realize that Christ had no privileges at all by being the Son of God, and no privileged treatment. He drew to himself those experiences that were to free the whole of the human race from conditions which they had brought on themselves through lack of understanding. He could not do it through the use of privileged conditions, but by being willing to go through all experiences. He was doing it to establish a universal condition, and not for himself at all. We are doing it for ourselves, and therefore the first half of the technique is for ourselves, the preparation for getting rid of those conditions in ourselves that are ruining our own lives. If we are very selfish and have a great idea of our own self-importance and how much it matters what happens to us and those around us, then we do try to get rid of conditions in ourselves which are spoiling the picture of our lives, and perhaps we get no further than wanting personal happiness and peace of mind. We cannot become a universal distributor unless we have got that personal freedom from ourselves, and we cannot really start on the universal line unless we have a knowledge of our own personal failures and weaknesses. You are now starting with a very clear understanding of yourselves and of your capacity to become the universal service. And so I am going to give you an exercise which will bring you at once into touch with the heart of Jesus, because one's mind is one's personal self, but one's heart is one's universal self. The heart is one's organ of unity, and the mind is one's organ of personal separation from another. Through our brain we can receive the picture of life, and through our heart we give love. To love is a universal condition, and to receive the pattern is an individual condition. Now we come to the meeting point of the individual and the universal, and we must stop looking for individual and personal results when we start on the universal path. What comes through the transmission of the heart cannot be registered by the heart. In the very early days, after my brother first went over, one of the first things he wanted to share with me was the condition of the world in which he was living, and he wanted me to know that certain things were similar and others were different. There were different substances and forms, and he tried to transmit onto my television set the things he was seeing and experiencing in his different world. Afterwards he told me that he had done it but had not known whether I would receive it or not. I thought that strange, for surely if he was sending it he would have known whether I had received it, and also how correctly or how much my ignorance had interfered. Now I know that you cannot register what a person receives, but you are only concerned with being tuned in as a channel and allowing the power to come through you. If the mind is always tuned in to the Creator of love, you cannot be wondering what the result of that transmission is. You cannot be a channel and at the same time register the result of channelhood. When we learn how to function on our heart, we must be faithful to our capacity for tuning in. We shall get marvelous results if we can learn from the beginning the secret of our power to become one in substance with the Christ's own flesh and blood. All that the new technique can do is to draw us into such close unity of substance that his heart and our heart are one heartbeat. Always our heart must register where our mind is, and if our mind is focused on self, we shall find our heart is an emotional organ. But if it is only focused on the Christ, then the heart is quite steady. You may think it must be so difficult for people to control their emotions, but I am coming to this understanding. Emotional people are those who register themselves with their minds very quickly. The reaction in the heart is governed by the mind through thought. Therefore, it is essential that we have the mind of Christ if we are to start tuning into his heart, and that is where the technique in light comes in. We are trained to tune in as an instrument to the mind of Christ. We have not individual diseases. We are universal in disharmony. We must be universal in harmony. When we tune into the heart of our universal Christ, we become universal with him. But when we tune into our individual personality, finding life very hard and being conscious of individual depression, despair, bewilderment, uncertainty, suffering, and pain, then the suffering and pain are personal conditions. They are not universal until we make them so, and if we pass on our pain and suffering, we impose that condition on all around us. Our needs are so utterly individual and personal that they can and must be dealt with in direct communion with the Christ. And in that act of communion, we become freed from the personal into the freedom of the universal. We can get that condition in less than 60 seconds. Visualize in a diagonal line from your heart a radiant and brilliant body, a form like ours, only of a different substance, of concentrated light. I want it to reveal to you your Christ. I was made aware of him by a ruby ray coming down from his heart. My brother said all the things inside us here were outside there, and it seemed as though the inside of his body was flashing like jewels. The ruby of his heart and other stones were flashing out from this radiant figure, and I saw his heart ray down into my heart. Suddenly I saw a minute spark going on in my heart, and every time I breathed into the great pulse in his heart, I saw a tiny spark in mine. I knew then, if my heart and his heart could beat rhythmically together, then my heart would be used by him because it was of the physical substance that he needed. As he is no longer in a physical body, he needs to find many hearts still in the world through which he can radiate. The ill health of the world is due to the lack of physical hearts beating with his heart, and he has only a very few hearts just starting to beat with him. The result of that unity is life for everybody. If your heart stops beating, you die. But if your heart starts beating with Him, you can bring to life that which was dead. The experience which Jesus went through in bringing Lazarus back to life was the beat of the heart of the Father and the Son on earth in unison. There was no other way, and there is no other way for our rebirth to happen. The human heart may be so revitalized by the heart of God that no flesh need die. And yet we have come to such a condition today that unless these days be shortened, no flesh can live. We are so accustomed to think that no flesh can live that we cannot imagine a condition on earth when no flesh can die. It is only, however, a question of heartbeat in unison with God and Christ. I want you to start breathing from your heart. As you breathe in, think breath down to the heart of the figure of light. See this heart which is on a diagonal line to your own, because the figure of light lies at your feet, and so the heart is on the opposite side to yours. Breathe out straight into the ruby radiance which is the heart of the universal Christ. He is there and is universal because he can broadcast into every single heart. As everyone can tune into the sun in the sky, there is not one person who cannot tune into the universal heart of Christ, and it is as great a radiance and power as the sun. The sun's rays are drawn onto the earth to give heat, and they draw heat out of the earth and make a radiation of heat. His cosmic heart is there to be drawn into our physical heart, to give a radiation of life. And this dual condition of heat, life and energy can be drawn in by us on every breath, but we have to get our direction right. Your heart is a container, and this is the first act of committal. It does not matter who you put into your heart. As you start the cosmic breathing, force is generated. One has no notion of what goes out, and it does not matter, but it is vital and it is life. The person who receives it and is committed in our hearts shares in this universal condition. There is nothing personal in the cosmic breath, and your mind must be tuned in on breath to his heart. You are focused on the Christ, and your mind is his mind. Therefore, his heart is your heart, and what goes out of your heart in this condition is the beginning of absolute certainty of channelhood. Do not commit yourself in your own heart on the cosmic breath, only on the needs exercise, for that must be for everybody except ourselves. Pray that you may be found in someone else's heart, but do not put yourself in your own heart for self-protection. We are too often in our own mind, and when we are unhappy and emotionally upset, it is because our mind is focused on ourselves and we are not tuned in. Let us start it now today, visualizing the cosmic breath at all times. Put your enemies into your heart and commit them to him. His heart can take them in, but yours cannot. Our minds can take in everything of horror, but we do not give our heart a chance. It can take in so as to pass on to his heart every condition of blackness, darkness, treachery, and vileness. But the heart is the place and not the mind. Do your cosmic breathing and commit the mentally unsound people in your heart, and they will get stability. Commit all the people compassed about by the enemy and by blackness and treachery. There is no mental solution for it, and no power of the mind that can dominate a traitor, but the power of the heart will do so every time. Put them in your heart and commit them to the universal Christ, and have your mind clear. Do not keep them in your mind. Cast out the thoughts of your mind into your heart and learn how great is that heart intelligence.